Hello and welcome to this GCSE revision video for Wordsworth's poem As I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, otherwise known as Daffodils. Today we're going to look at the three key things to assess for at GCSE. On the left, meaning of the poem, middle, language used in the poem, and on the far side, its context. If you take a look at the grade criteria currently displayed on the board, you'll note that a top grade will involve a sensitive, evaluative approach, will explore meanings and effects created by language, and will show an assured understanding between the poem and the time it was written. It is these points then that we look to address as we go through this video. I hope you find it useful. Now let's take a look at the context. Let me introduce you to Mr. William Wordsworth. On April 15th, 1802, William and his sister Dorothy Wordsworth took a walk along the shores of Ullswater to the Lake District. Dorothy vividly described a long belt of daffodils swaying in the breeze, which inspired William to write his famous poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, in 1804. It was Dorothy's detailed diary entries that provided rich material for William's poetry. Her description of the daffodils as dancing and laughing in the wind captured the essence of nature's beauty and became central to the poem's imagery. In 1826, William purchased a field near his home, Rylam Mount, and planted it with daffodils in memory of his daughter Dora, who died in 1847. This was known as Dora's Field, and it remains a testament to his love and loss. Now let's take a video just reminding ourselves of William Wordsworth and what he was thinking and feeling as he wrote the poem.
The Lake District is one of the most stunning areas of Britain, immortalised in the poetry of William Wordsworth. Grasmere was where the poet William Wordsworth lived and made his first family home. By the time he settled here in 1799, Wordsworth had travelled all over Europe, across France into Switzerland, and visited the Italian lakes. But having seen these beautiful places, he still described Grasmere as the loveliest spot that man hath ever found. In 1799, Wordsworth rented a small lakeland cottage, formerly an inn called the Dove and Olive Bough, where he settled down with his sister Dorothy to concentrate on writing. The conditions were basic, with no running water, lit by candles, open fires for heating and cooking, and a meager diet. But it was here, during this period of plain living but high thinking, that Wordsworth wrote his best and most famous poems. Dove Cottage is preserved as it was when William and Dorothy lived there. The cottage and the museum next door are open all year round. In 1802, William Wordsworth and Dorothy went on a walking trip to visit friends. After several days of walking across countryside and rough tracks, they arrived on the shores of Ullswater. Today, even if you take your time, you can reach Ullswater in around 40 minutes. That day, Dorothy wrote in her journal, "The wind was furious, the lake was rough. We saw a few daffodils close to the waterside. But as we went along there, more and yet more. I never saw daffodils so beautiful they grew among the mossy stones. Some rested their heads upon these stones as on a pillow for weariness, and the rest tossed and reeled and danced." A couple of years later, William was reminded of Dorothy's diary entry, and by his own account, wrote the first of many versions of the most famous poem in the English language.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle in the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils.
So why not avoid the hustle and bustle of the Lake District's major resorts and follow in the footsteps of William Wordsworth?
You can clearly see there why he was so inspired by Ullswater and the beauty that surrounded him on his walk. Now let's take a look at the poem itself with a reading and video to talk you through it.
Daffodils by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils.
As we watch that video, it seems easy to imagine Wordsworth sitting by the lakeside, contemplating the swaying daffodils and the happiness they bring him and the joy they bring him on Ullswater. Here's the second version, this one a bit more upbeat.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw the crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the
As I said, a slightly more upbeat version there, which really brings to life some of the beauty of the area. Now let's take a look at different parts of the poem. Notes will appear around the outside. You've got the structure notes, which will be in yellow. Structure notes will be in brown, and the language notes will be in yellow. You can see the start of the poem there begins with the phrase, "I wandered lonely as a cloud." The poem opens with a simile that compares the speaker's solitary state to a cloud. This comparison sets the tone for the speaker's initial sense of isolation and detachment from the world. Wordsworth employs alliteration here to enhance the musical quality of the poem that floats on higher vales and hills, the H in high and the H in hills forming the alliteration. The repetition of the H sound mimics the gentle flowing movement of a cloud, reinforcing the theme of solitude which is present at the start of the poem. The phrase at the end of stanza 1, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, the daffodils are personified, attributing human actions to them. This brings the flowers to life, contrasting with the speaker's initial lifelessness. The poem as a whole is written in iambic tetrameter, with each line consisting of 4 iambic feet, an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed one. This regular rhythm mirrors natural speech and contributes to the poem's musical quality. Hence so many people putting music videos together then and singing the poem as a song. The first stanza follows an A, B, A, B, C, C rhyme scheme, providing a sense of order and harmony. This structure contrasts with the speaker's initial sense of disarray, suggesting a shift towards balance. Let's move then to the middle of the poem. Wordsworth employs a simile to compare the daffodils to stars in the Milky Way. This comparison emphasizes the vast number and brightness of the daffodils, suggesting a sense of wonder and awe both in the reader and Wordsworth. The daffodils are once again personified as they dance in the breeze, attributing human-like qualities to these flowers. This makes it sound like a scene of joy then, and showing the vitality of nature. The repetition of consonant sounds, such as the S in stars and shine, creates a musical quality that enhances the poem's rhythm and flow. Wordsworth attributes human-like qualities to both the daffodils and the waves. Both are described as dancing and gleeful, while the waves are also said to be dancing. The personification brings the natural elements to life, emphasizing once again the joy and vitality of the scene. The word gazed is repeated twice, I gazed and gazed, to emphasize the speaker's deep admiration for the captivating effect the daffodils have on him. Now let's move to the end of the poem. The daffodils are personified as they dance and toss their heads, attributing human-like qualities to the flowers and conveying their lively and joyful movement. The phrase "inward eye" metaphorically represents the speaker's memory or imagination, suggesting the recollection is vivid, almost visual experience. This is a memory that Wordsworth has that is almost being brought back to life by the poem itself. The repetition of "and" in the last 2 lines creates a rhythmic flow and emphasizes the speaker's emotional response to the daffodils. The final stanza transitions from the past to the present tense, indicating the speaker is reflecting on the past experience in the present moment. This shift emphasizes the lasting impact of the daffodils on the speaker's emotional state. The use of enjambment, where a sentence or phrase runs over from one line to the next without a pause, reflects the continuous and flowing nature of the speaker's thoughts and emotions. That completes our notes on the poem Daffodils. Let's now summarise. It is Wordsworth himself speaking, recounting a personal experience. What? The poem describes the speaker's solitary encounter with the vibrant feel of daffodils, which uplifts his spirits. And why do we think it was written? The poem shows that a natural experience can transform into a lasting source of personal solace and inspiration. Now we move to 3 key quotes to learn ready for the exam. For each one, you'll see the quote appear in the centre and ideas for what to write about it around the outside. The marking criteria is on the right. Please pause the video then to make notes on key quote 1. Key quote 2 now appears in the middle of the screen. And the analysis of that quote appears around the outside. And lastly, key quote 3 and there you have all 3 key quotes, some analysis of them, including subject vocabulary. I hope that was useful to you. And now we're going to move to a possible essay about this poem. As normal, we're going to focus on the introduction, a start, a middle, and an end. Here is the start of a possible essay. You'll note it's about 4 to 5 sentences long, uses a bit of context information, and deliberately shows understanding of the poem and engages with its key ideas. This would then be the beginning of about a grade 6 response. You'll notice some of the language here is taken from the notes you've already made, and deliberately it's a quite short introduction or overview of the poem. Now let's take a look at our next paragraph. This will be where our quotes begin to appear, as well as our explanation of why those language choices were made. This focuses on just the first stanza of the poem and begins to explore how the poem begins or how Wordsworth has started his poem. I've deliberately highlighted the analysis part here, where I've zoomed in on the word crowd and suggested why that particular word is used. The analysis is a particularly important part of explaining the poem when looking at the subject criteria. So if you analyse correctly by zooming on a word, that is the beginning of a grade 4, 5, 6 or even higher. The more exact you are, the better. Here is then our middle of our answer, focusing on the second stanza. And once again in green I've highlighted where analysis begins with the word tossing. You can see on the grade criteria analysis appears in the mid section of the grade, but also appear in the grade 5 as well if you look above. Okay, please read through this answer, take a look at how it might be written. And lastly, let's move to the end of the poem, where we start to look at once again the analysis of the last couple of lines. Have a look at the kind of length of my answer there as well. And you might want to make notes on what I've said and then try and recreate it from memory by pausing this video and see if you can match my answer based on your notes. Thank you very much then for listening to this video of I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, otherwise known as Daffodils, by William Wordsworth. I'm going to close out today then with a final rendition of the song or the poem as a song as we end today's revision session.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine, a twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth could show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodil. Oh, daffodils so bright and fair, dancing freely in the air, golden waves that shine so true, nature's joy in golden hue. So outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart